Welcome, everyone. My name is Autumn Hume. I'm the account director with the Healthcare Partnerships team at the Muscular Dystrophy Association. Thank you for joining us today for the MDA Industry Update webinar sponsored by Scholar Rock, entitled Life Takes Muscle, Striving for Independence in SMA. On behalf of MDA, we would also like to thank you for all you do for MDA and the neuromuscular community. MDA's Industry Update webinars are programs which provide an opportunity for the medical community to receive information and updates impacting care and treatment directly from pharmaceutical and biotechnology companies. These webinars are just a part of MDA's medical education resources. We encourage you to visit the medical education pages of mda.org. You will find resources such as considerations for care case studies, recorded grand round webinars, research grants, and so much more. So for today's webinar, we have quite a robust presentation. So please put any questions you may have into the Q&A box, and we will answer them if we have time at the end. If we run out of time, then either Scholar Rock or MDA will follow up with you after the webinar. Now I would like to introduce today's presenters. Diana Castro, MD, is a pediatric neurologist with expertise in neuromuscular medicine. Dr. Castro leads multiple research initiatives in pediatric neuromuscular disorders, including SMA and Duchenne muscular dystrophy. She is the founder and director of the Neurology and Neuromuscular Care Center in Denton, Texas, and hosts the Life Takes Muscle podcast. Jacqueline Montes, Ed.D., PT, NCS, is a professor of rehabilitation and regenerative medicine at Columbia University Irvine Medical Center. A licensed physical therapist and certified neurological clinical specialist, Dr. Montes holds advanced degrees in motor learning and movement sciences from Teachers College, Columbia University. Her research centers on gait, fatigue, and outcome measures in neuromuscular disease. She has been integral in developing the standards of care for physical therapy in SMA and training physical therapists around the world in assessments for clinical trials. And then Kevin Bonner is a passionate SMA advocate and proud father to his 10-year-old son, Bear, who lives with spinal muscular atrophy. Based in Long Island, New York, Kevin is pushing for continued progress in the SMA community. Since Bear's diagnosis, at a time when no approved treatments existed, Kevin has focused on celebrating every milestone while refusing to settle. For his family, it's no longer about what's lost, but what's possible. And on that note, without further ado, I would like to turn it over to Dr. Castro.
Thank you, Autumn. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you for having us here. You know, I think this space is a good opportunity to show what is happening, what is going on. I do treat adults as well, so you missed that part. But I treat them very proudly. So we're going to start with the presentation. I think we can go to the next slide because we were introduced. We are going to just talk really quick about disclosures. All the speakers are paid by Scholar Rock. I have done research sponsored by several companies, and I also have consulting for other companies that have been involved in SMA research. Professor Montes also has conducted a lot of research as well, funded by different companies, and you can read all of them there. And Kevin B is a paid consultant for Scholar Rock, but there is no other disclosure. This is not a certified continuing medical education session. If you can go to the next one. So let's start. So the objectives of this talk is really to point at things. What are we missing? Where are we and what are we missing? What are the things that we need to get? What are the therapies, the target therapies that now are being developed to try to help in those other areas? I mean, we know SMA is a severe rare neuromuscular disease. I have had the privilege of seeing patients when we didn't have treatment through the whole research part to today. What we continue seeing, obviously, is that this disease advances. Even with the current therapies, we still have things going on. So there are many remaining unmet SMA or needs in the SMA world. I wanted to let Kevin present the next slide because it talks about his sweet boy. He will tell us a little bit about him first.
Thank you, Dr. Castro. So yeah, as mentioned at the start here, my son Bear is 10 years old. He has SMA type 2. Um, these are some of his cutest photos from he's a little bit younger. He's very cute now, but bigger than these photos. So Bear was actually diagnosed prenatally 10 to 11 years ago, which is actually relatively rare back then. So we were given, a terrible prognosis, the one that every parent fears. He was able to start SMA treatment before he was around the age of 2, and he's been on a treatment since then, his second treatment now. And so we kind of have seen the whole roller coaster from his low point or hospitalizations, et cetera, with illnesses around 2 or 3 years old to now over time he's regained some of those lost abilities. He's a much more stable, healthy place. And yeah, as mentioned, we're always looking for that improvement, for those little improvements. And SMA is still, very much, well, he's in a better place, medically than when he was younger. SMA is obviously still very much a part of our daily lives. And, we're used to it, adapting to it. But we say to Bear that it just means a little extra of everything, extra planning for travel, extra concerns for germs, extra, when it comes to certain types of food to eat or choking, and then of course accessibility, friends' houses, all the stuff that comes up as he gets to be older, as 10-year-old with a social life. So we're happy for the gains we've made and everything like that, but there's obviously a lot more that we hope for in Bear's future. So
Thanks, Kevin, for sharing your story. And I think that you just said something very important, which we will talk about through the webinar, and it's about independence, right?
mhm.
Despite the fact that we have these therapies, we have 3 therapies right now that are approved, people are still reporting there is something missing. I like SMA did a survey in patients, I think 300 people with SMA, and very interesting, almost 90% of them said we want more strength. We want more muscle. We want to get that little gap closed, not little, big gap. But then the other thing you said about independence is important because some people think about SMA as just the spinal cord, the anterior horn cells, or the cells in the spine, but nothing else. And the problem is that the nerve gets affected, the muscle gets affected, and these will limit, as the patient's growing, the capacity of being independent and doing their own things, right? So right now we're moving from what we were initially, we're gonna try to treat this horrible disease, this heart disease, and we are in a beautiful place, but let's see how can we move forward. I'm gonna ask Jacqueline Montes about strength, muscle strength. She is a physical therapist. She deals with these patients very often. So Jackie, how does muscle strength relate to your role as a physical therapist?
Well, thanks, Dr. Castro. Physical therapists are caretakers of muscles, right? Muscles are our thing. Muscles are essential for motor function. And so how a person navigates their environment and performs activities of daily living, like eating, bathing, dressing, all those things, it requires muscles. And so our job as the caretakers of muscles is to make them work to the best that they can, thereby enhancing motor function and ultimately, improving someone's overall well-being. And in the case with, getting closer to that functional independence that we're talking about here.
And it's very important, but we're talk about, if you can go to the next one, we're talking about large muscles, but we also have to think about the small muscles that are actually affected in this condition, because we know that there are some motor cells in the area that connects the brain to the spine that get affected. And that's why these patients not only have muscle weakness in their extremities, but we see difficulties breathing. And now that I see adults, I can see the progression of the disease. That's why it's so important for people to always think about the standard of care. It's not only medication, it's also everything that it's around. We have here, for example, where 36% of patients, they still using breathing support. That means tracheostomy, that means BiPAP, that means many, many things. The cough assist, the nebulization is many things that they will require. The other thing we see frequently is the difficulties eating. Here it says 16% of people requires a feeding tube, but even some patients that I have that eat by mouth, because of fatigue, because of tiredness, because of weakness, they end up needing that supplementation through the tube. So it's something very important to remember. It's not only large muscles. Scoliosis, we're seeing it more than we used to see it before, because before, without therapies, we did palliative care. So these patients will usually end up, laying down or sitting, but the scoliosis that we have seen recently after we start using these new medications, it's dramatic. For those patients, it's quite dramatic. And we also see it here, it says type 2 and 3, but I'm talking about the patients that were born with 2 copies that were treated around 6 months of age, and they still now see it, but they are all of those now difficulties with scoliosis and with joint contractures. And I'll ask Jackie, what are some common muscle weakness related complications that you see when you're treating people with SMA?
Yeah, scoliosis really remains a problem and stands out to me. I mean, when we think about weakness, oftentimes we think about limb weakness, but we know that in SMA they have really bad trunk weakness. And, between that and the impact of gravity when we're upright, and now more people with SMA are upright, scoliosis is really a prevalent, and it impairs their ability sometimes to sit, to stand, or even to move in different positions. Similarly, contractures, when we think about limb weakness, we think about contractures because contractures are really limitations in joint mobility. And oftentimes, as it relates to muscle, it's usually because of a muscular imbalance. So if you can imagine, in your arm, if your biceps are stronger than your triceps, there's sort of a discrepancy in the force pulling across that joint. And so you might end up with a flexion contracture. And so these are the things that we see pretty often now that want to help address.
Yeah, that we didn't used to see, but now we see, which is a good problem to have, but we have to address those difficulties. If you can give me the next slide. And when you think about weakness in the extremities, then you think about the bulbar weakness, all the other complications, you have to think about something that people in general don't think about. You stand up, you get out of the bed, you go to the shower, take a shower, get ready, have breakfast, right? Life goes on. Our patients with SMA, they learn to work around the disease. And to me, has been an honor to be able to spend so much time with pediatric and adult patients now to hear their stories, because they're dramatic stories about how do we make it happen. And it's a whole project. And Kevin, I'm sure you're going to tell me about that, because like one of the things I have seen in the adults is that they avoid liquids because they don't want to urinate at their, who is going to help them getting out of the wheelchair and doing all the things. We see, for example, now they use some positioning to be able to get to their hair, to wash their hair, to do all of these things. And you can read it, but all of these things and things that we take every day, just, you think that we should have it and everything is perfect, and we don't think about that. But my call today is really think all the complications that we have. And I'll ask Kevin, what are some workarounds for Bear's life that you guys have to start doing?
Yeah, so he's still a kid, so we are do a lot of his needs. Well, I guess he's 10. He's starting to get more and more independent, but some safety ones, he drinks thickened liquids. We avoid certain foods, like we're talking about the bulbar function of swallowing. At 7:30 every night due to fatigue, he's not allowed to have any more snacks. And that can be tough when sometimes his younger brother is 4, is having snacks. We pretty much cut them off at the same time, but that's not something we want to do. Because he's just getting a little bit more tired, his throat muscles. When it comes to a lot of it comes down to, he's a 10-year-old boy, and a lot of it's, the weight of this Nerf gun or this toy, or he has an adaptable video game controller that really just is a slightly easier button to press. A lot of it comes down to a little bit extra pressure. I've definitely found myself, he calls me out on it, opening up a toy at the toy store to test out the buttons to see if they'll work or not, because you can't see through the box. We don't take it, we pay for it, but that's something special that I allow us to do. That's against store policy, to test them out, because you never know until you try it out. But obviously, the biggest one to me on this list has to do with independence, is relying on caregivers. We're lucky to have some staff members that help him out, and certainly the last few years of his life, he doesn't mind that. He doesn't mind the attention and et cetera, et cetera. But he's 10. He's getting to that point now where he's at the playground and he's back off, go away, leave me alone. And if every 20 minutes, he needs to have somebody come up and wipe his nose because he has allergies or something like that, can cramp his style, if you will. It's going to certainly grow quite a bit. I kind of view it as like he can go out further and further from the center, from whoever needs to. I think, for the time being, he's still going to need to, do his cough assist, do his breathing treatments. He'll need to come back to somebody who can help him at some point, but he can go out for hours on his own if he is able to, take care of his basic needs on his own. So that's been some of the workarounds we're trying to grow and build into his independence in this, key part of his life.
And I think I have said these before. I have a great admiration from the bottom of my heart for parents, for caregivers, for the patients, because you guys are amazing. I mean, most of us are suffering for these little things here and there. You guys are dealing with big problems, and you figure out and you keep forward. I mean, if you go to the next slide, and that's the point, is that how do we get them to be more independent? Because independence, has a very good correlation with mental health, to be able to continue having a good life and quality of life, which it matters more than anything. It's not only having patients here in this world, but to make sure that we're thinking about their quality of life, which is key. And we talk about some of these things already, right? For example, that something that I learned with adults is engaging in social situations. So I have a patient that he likes to go and drink with his buddies, with his friends. So he now has a way that with a catheter that he can get, he can urinate and then come back because he's drinking beer. So it's going to make him go to the restroom. But these are the little things that, again, we don't think, and for these people are extremely, extremely important. If you go to a restaurant and you're eating, I have one patient that said that, I have to be very careful with what I'm eating with my friends because I'm not going to be able to eat absolutely everything. I can choke on some of them. So, Kevin, what things will each of you look forward to if Bear achieve greater independence? What are the things that you guys are, on your wish list?
I think what you hit on there is, again, as I said, at this point in his life, social engagements, and we're expecting hopefully not too much, but the normal, push away from his parents as he becomes a teenager, and being able to go over a friend's house and go off and have an adventure for a couple hours and not need to worry about coming back to check on this or et cetera, and be able to eat snacks, whatever everyone else is eating. We've been thinking a lot about independence, myself and my wife, the last few days. Bear's actually away for the first time at a sleepaway camp. That's been a great opportunity, and it's a camp for kids with physical disabilities. So it's been terrifying for us as parents, but he's been taking big jumps with independence. And from a medical point of view, it's great that he's in a good space to be able to do that. But even at this camp that is inclusive, the day we dropped him off, he found out that they do, Nerf gun wars. And he asked the counselor, "Hey, do you know if they have, guns that you can that are easy to push?" And again, I'm sure that they are going to figure it out, and there's workarounds, and this is the place that's not in the regular world. He's already thinking, will I be able to push the button? The other day we went to a family pool party and there was a water squirter, and he was able to find one that he could leverage like this to squirt his cousins in the face. Who doesn't want to shoot his cousin in the face in the pool? But he was able to find one, but it wasn't a given. And it's just a little bit of a matter of strength. He's obviously adaptable and very flexible and little genius with how he manipulates things. But those little things, we're hoping to see more and more of those little independence things we can participate to the fullest as he, grows with these social relationships, and it can be in the background. He doesn't have to think I have to worry about X, Y, and Z while I'm, chasing this person or playing this board game or something like that. And this is where we're close on a lot of fronts, but a little more would really make a big difference.
And I'm gonna say you guys are brave. I'm gonna tell you the truth. I have a 14-year-old and 11-year-old. They have never been at camp because
I never went as a kid. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know what I'm doing.
hard. It's so hard because,
Yeah.
you know,
Yep.
I worry about other things that I worry with them. You know, I want them to put sunscreen on. If they go to a camp, nobody's going to be behind them putting sunscreen. But
Mm-hmm.
it's amazing that you guys got to this point, and that things, obviously, we want to continue getting there. We don't want to get stuck in here and then move forward. We want to actually continue gaining. And if you go to the next slide, again, seeing adults have teaching me really quickly that there is progression. So this study has 88 participants, and they divide into groups as teenagers, adolescents between 12 to 17, and the young adults between 18 to 25, which they are in pink. And you see all the pink bars are going to be higher than the yellow ones, right? Because as we get older, we're doing more complicated things. We need more help. Our body's bigger. You know, it's a completely different life after you go from being a pediatric patient to an adult patient. And you can see it right there very quickly. They talk about hand and finger strength, social satisfaction, emotional health, pain, all of these things too that we don't talk enough. You know, we don't talk enough about emotional health. We don't talk enough about the chronic problems that we have with constipation, with all of these things. So I think that this graphic can show you that the struggle is real, that even though these patients are getting treatments, they're still having difficulties in their life. If you can please go to the next one. Something that I'm fascinated is fatigue, because fatigue is very difficult to define. You know, I can be mentally fatigued, I can be physically fatigued, I can be muscle fatigue, and it's hard to measure and it's hard to treat. But you see in this study, in a survey, of 639 patients, where they are also reporting that there is the fatigue causes more difficulties at the end of the day. You said something about the snacks, Kevin, which is clear, right? If I'm stronger, I'm gonna eat better and faster. If I get more tired and weak, I'm not gonna be able to. I have said that, maybe I said in the podcast, because I have a patient that I thought it was so interesting. He eats solid food in the morning and at nighttime puree food, because he cannot chew anything else. After 5 p.m., he's done. So again, very important to remember that that we're not only treating muscles. And I think I steal this from Jackie, and I'm going to ask Jackie to give us her amazing opinion as well.
Thanks. No, you said it beautifully. I mean, I guess what I would add is that and fatigue is pretty complicated, but when we think about SMA, we usually think about physical fatigue, right? And it links back to muscle. And also when you talk about all these activities that are important to people, they're typically repetitive activities. So things that require repetitive action that requires muscles, and if the consequence of not being able to keep up is fatigue. And so I like this study too, because it really highlights that while maybe the whole US population suffers from fatigue for different reasons, people with SMA, regardless of their functional status, so non-sitters, walkers, or if they are not on require respiratory support, all have more reported or experienced fatigue than the general US population. So it's a problem for SMA.
Yeah, and I'm sure you have seen it in clinic very clearly. People tells you about this all the time, and huge unmet need. So if you can give me the next one, and I will say for now, the next one is kind of like a summary of what we have said until now. This is a progressive disease that causes the muscle atrophy or muscle wasting, that not only impacts the big muscles, but also impacts those little muscles that are important for other functions like breathing, eating, and so on. We have said progressive many times because it is progressive. It does not really stop after we start treatment necessarily. Many patients continue having difficulties. Also, the fact that independence, it's a big issue for patients with SMA as they get weaker, older, more difficulties. And we just talk about fatigue, which again, I think we can talk about fatigue for hours because we don't know yet anything. We don't know a lot about this. If you can give me the next one. So we are going to talk about myostatin and muscle focused approaches to treatment. As I say, we have 3 treatments that are approved. So the ones that we have approved are all directed to the motor neuron, to the motor nerve cell. So why? Because we're trying to increase those levels of SMN protein to make the patient obviously stronger. But what happened with the nerve? What happened to the muscle? You know, we're forgetting that part. We're not there yet. Maybe I'm asking for too much. We're getting there, because we cannot forget that also gets affected. If you can go to the next one. And I think that this slide, I hope I'm not gonna present somebody's work, but it's the same. I think it's exactly the same. Despite the ongoing SMN targeted treatments, motor function declines. I have several patients that I think around late 20s, 30s start having difficulties typing, difficulties with their cell phone, difficulties holding throughout the day in meetings. I have a guy, absolutely smart, who sits in front of his computer 8 hours. After he turn off, he is done. He cannot do anything else, right? So he has, and even though he has been receiving treatment and now he's stable, but he started seeing those little things that are changing, which cause all of those difficulties. From Jackie, do you want to make, like from your perspective, do you want to make a comment about this?
Yeah, sure. I mean, you know, without dating myself, you know, I've been through the treatment era and now the treatment era, and you know, it's reasonable to see that there's going to be a shift. Like, so in enhancing muscle function with medication and exercise is what us PTs do. It seems like the next most reasonable approach to you know, continue improvements in function and prevent the eventual decline that we see over years. You know, before the availability of treatments for SMA, exercise at best alone, you know, would help maintain function and maybe muscle strength. That was sort of the goal. The goal was not to lose with intervening with exercise. And now combining exercise with muscle targeted and pharmacotherapies and the other treatments that they're getting really is sort of where we're headed. And it's exciting for us. I think it gives us it definitely has a different focus.
Yeah, you just said exercise, which is amazing. I got something, I think it was from the MDA that they sent today in the email about exercise in patients with neuromuscular diseases before we say no exercise, you know, or limit exercise. And now this is changing a lot because of the current treatments that we have. If you can give me the next one. I just want to say, what is myostatin and why is that we, as the researchers, have been trying to use it as a target therapy? Myostatin is something that we have in our body to control. I always put my hand like this. This is my muscle. This is myostatin. Myostatin is not letting it grow more than is needed. So obviously, as we get older, we're growing, kids, you know, being adolescent, adult, you have to grow some. But after that, it really, the muscle stops. Actually, when we get older, we start losing muscle mass. So if you remove, or if you block, or if you inhibit that myostatin way, then the muscle has the opportunity to grow. Every time I said this, the patients look at me like, oh my God, I'm gonna look huge. No, we're gonna work with what they have. And the idea is that if you allow that muscle to grow, we're gonna be able to have some of the unmet needs that we have right now, including the loss of muscle strength, the fatigue, which is affecting the independence and life of these patients. And next one. So the future of SMA, and you can give me the next one. So we have done something, we improved survival. Jackie didn't want to date him, but date herself, but I dated myself. I have seen the patients without treatment, and we definitely improved survival. We now have different phenotypes, or meaning different expressions of the conditions. Patients that were destined to be laying down, now they are sitting. Patients that were destined to be sitting, now they are walking. So we got there. Classification is now an issue. We're working on that. So we have seen this moving forward, right? But again, we need to keep working. If you can give me the next one. And again, I have heard striving for more than surviving. I think is surviving, I think we have achieved a humongous jump in medicine, what we're doing with SMA. But now how can we make it better for them? As a physical therapist, Jackie, how will muscle target treatment impact your clinic practice? How do you see that making a change?
I think, like simply stated, prior to muscle targeted therapies, we were really, as PTs, seeking for permission to exercise and now I think we have a mandate to combine exercise with muscle targeted therapies to really um, not with the goal of improving muscle strength and function, not just sort of mitigating the loss or, making the best out of a downward trajectory. So I'm excited by it.
Can you give me the next slide, please? And from this slide, what I want you to think is delaying treatment may allow muscle loss to compound over time. Very important, because they are going to continue losing muscle mass, and as aging humans, we will continue losing. So when is the right time to treat, right? That is the question.
I have a question. How does treating people with SMA early on, how does that affect their long-term well-being?
I mean, if we start being proactive with things that you're getting stronger, you're able to exercise, you're going to hopefully controlling joint contractures, for example. So you want to do it early. You don't want it when the patient is already contracted. So these are the type of things we treat early. We start getting into a patient early. We're going to prevent contractures. Hopefully it's going to work. It's going to help us with scoliosis. It's going to help us with all of these long-term difficulties. I think in every neuromuscular disease, the earlier you treat, the best probably you're going to do. And the next one.
Right. Yes, this is me. That's Bear again. A little bit older in the beginning. And just to hit on what I was saying earlier, as any parent as he grows into a teenager, we're tentatively hoping that he needs us less. Not just us, but his nurses. He'll always need his PTs, like Jackie, and continue to work and exercise and everything. But we're hoping that he's able to go out there and explore and be on his own or with his friends as much as possible. So we're excited about the future for Bear.
And I think we're gonna have to cut soon. The summary I gave you, and I'm gonna give you my summary. My summary is that this is a beautiful field. This is an amazing population. Love my patients, love the caregivers. We have done great, but we need to do better, and we still have a big unmet need. Thank you so much. If you can put this next slide. I think there is, for more information, there is a QR code.
Wonderful. Thanks. Great information shared today. Unfortunately, we have run out of time for Q&A, so we will follow up directly with the people who submitted questions. Thank you for those questions. Thank you to Scholar Rock. Thank you, Dr. Castro, Dr. Montes, and Kevin for your insightful presentation. And thank you to everyone who attended today's program, all the medical professionals and other attendees. We hope you will join us for future industry update webinars.